Okay, next up we have a discussion on the future of news, from passive to active. How are we combining awareness and activism with news? So it is my pleasure to introduce my boss and founder and CEO of Mashable, Pete Cashmore. Thank you. Ian Somerhalder, who is an actor, entrepreneur, and advisor to Riot. David Darg, who is a co-founder of Riot. And Bryn Musser, who is also a co-founder of Riot.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Obviously, people are pretty excited about this panel.
I'm excited.
So maybe you can kick off and tell us a little bit about Riot and how news is becoming participatory.
Sure. David and I started Riot about a year ago. We launched, and it really comes from spending the last 10 years, each of us in the field doing development work in humanitarian programs and seeing what was working and seeing what wasn't working, and really wanting to change the way that young people are getting engaged with what was happening in the world, and also how they could participate in that. And maybe David, you could take it from.
Yeah, during our time as aid workers, we had kind of a dual role. We'd go in doing relief projects, but we were also responsible for filmmaking and getting the story from the field back to people that had the power to do something about it. And we really saw a disconnect in trying to get people interested in the work we were doing. Because of apathy, who knows why. I mean, it's tough to get people to get interested about wells in Ghana on any particular day. So we wanted to flip the model on its head. And we said, well, what are people interested in? And first and foremost, we realized it's news. And if we can somehow harness news and what people are interested in today, and then backflow and link that through to an action, then we're on to a winner. So that's where the idea for Riot came from.
So news is really the way to keep people engaged. It's about this whole trend of, content is how you market things now if you want to get a message out. What kind of content are you guys creating?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. David just returned from the Syrian refugee camps and was shooting video for us down there and doing relief work at the same time. We have a reporter who's in Goma right now covering the conflict there. A lot of it is citizen journalism. We rely on people all over the world to send us in videos, Instagram pictures, and then in addition we have our own reporters who are working. And we also rely heavily on the Associated Press and Reuters, I think, to get more of the traditional news story and seeing what's out there.
Yeah, we syndicate a lot of news. The key for us is that Riot is just as breaking and current and updated as any other news site out there. The New York Times, that our news is happening in real time and that you can go on there and find out. I think our lead story today is about the terror attacks in Nairobi. But the key is with us, the other news networks might be reporting about it, but we really see that as kind of an old school model. It's a one-way flow of information. This is what's happened in Nairobi. It's terrible. You come away feeling, angry, helpless. We're trying to capitalize on that emotion that you get when you read a news story. And so on our site, there's an action. We link you through to the Kenyan Red Cross that's actually caring for the victims, and you can donate to the relief fund for the victims. And that's happening in real time with the news as it breaks.
Great. Ian, how did you get involved with this?
I've known these men, and Bryn and I have had some really incredible times together. And Bryn came to me and he says, listen, we have this idea that ultimately we want to be able to take the news and make it in a participant manner, be able to have people become the news. Ultimately, it can't just be, you read an article, it's a dead end. Riot allows it to no longer be a dead end. There's actually a call to this action, and my mind was blown. And I said, yes, this is something we have to do. This is going to completely flip the news model on its head, and it's going to be powerful. And now what you're doing is ultimately, I don't have the only expertise I think I may have is in youth of the world, which is ultimately the most underutilized, undervalued portion of our world, are the young people. And what I've learned is by virtue of empowering them, you have the ability to shift paradigms, into the future till the cows come home.
What is it about this generation that they want to be engaged? It used to be enough to just read a newspaper and be done with it.
Well, it's an impressive generation.
What's changed?
It's an impressive generation. They don't just talk the talk. They walk the walk. They step up. They're engaged. They want to participate. They are involved. We hear this word a lot that's kind of thrown around called slacktivism, and we hear that a bit with us and young journalists trying to make things happen. But I can show you quantifiable change that is actually activism. It's not slacktivism. So when you hear that word, we just love to shoot it down. I mean, I can show you.
Well, how does that, because, I mean, we've been doing the Social Good Summit for, I guess, the 5th one, and,
Yeah.
and the original
Wow.
criticism was, well, I'm sure we can get people to talk online, but how do we get them to actually take action, to
Yeah.
donate, to... Are you seeing a change then? Is there a sea change towards people taking action online now?
I think that, one of the things, and as Ian talks about, I mean, Ian's lucky to have all these incredible fans all over the world who are really want to do good in the world. They're really looking for a way to help out. And at Riot, we're really trying to make that as clear as possible. Here's what you can do. And from spending the last decade in the field, there are things that people can do all over the world, and there are things that people can do in their communities right now. They don't take a lot of money, and they can really affect change. And so we try to show both what your impact can be globally and also how you can help out in your own community. And that can just be, sometimes as simple as sending a tweet of support or signing a petition, or we love getting kids involved civically. So writing your representatives is still something that we really encourage.
It's encouraging also too that it's the old adage of to think globally, you have to act locally. If you can empower a young person or anyone to realize they can do something locally that's actually going to impact our sort of global nature, it's really, really empowering, and it creates doers. This is not just talking. This is not rhetoric. This is doing, and then it becomes relentless doing, and that relentless doing ultimately, yields quantifiable progress.
And Pete, just to add to that, with Ian, he's got all of these followers who are, watching his Twitter account, and so we really wanted to make sure that each piece of content that he was tweeting out was more meaningful than just tweeting an article about an environmental issue that he was passionate about, because he has his own foundation, the Ian Somerhalder Foundation, that's doing great work. So, as David and I were building it, we spent a lot of time talking with Ian about how do we make sure that each piece of content that you're pushing out there has a, totally embedded action back to the work you're doing philanthropically, so that it doesn't just become that dead end, it becomes more meaningful.
Have you guys got any specific examples? What's taken off really well?
Yeah, just this week, actually the last 4 weeks, we've been running a challenge called the Start a Riot Challenge, where we're just asking people to get behind a bunch of nonprofits. We offer some incentives. They can win tickets to the Global Citizen Concert next weekend. We've seen a great response. I think we've raised almost $700,000 in just 4 weeks. And probably by next week it'll be $1 million. So it's exciting. And it's for great causes all over the world. So we love it.
Nonprofits all over the world. I mean, that's a substantial amount of cash to do.
For us, we're working with CrowdRise, who we love. We're working with Change.org, Volunteer Match. And that's been a really exciting part, because I think up until now, there's been a lot of places where you can go and you can make a difference, you can do a change. But with Riot, we really are hoping that our stories, what's happening in the world, becomes that forward face that then causes people to do an action.
And which organizations are you guys working with?
Oh gosh, a lot.
Yeah, there's hundreds on the site. And coming from that field.
Each individual article, whatever that particular issue is, these guys, we find the best, organizations that are working within the confines of that particular area.
The action has to be
incredible.
really relevant to the story, to the content. And Bryn and I are fortunate to have come from that field, so we have a lot of friends working all over the world. We know the organizations very well, so we're able to curate actions very well.
20 years of experience between the two of them in the field.
But I also think for us, it's really exciting to step out of the nonprofit space where there can be this competition and politics, and to start something that we really think is very inclusive. We want to include every nonprofit that we discover that's doing great work as one of the actions for young people to get involved with.
Do you think this is the next evolution of commenting then? Is that something we're going to see elsewhere, or is it very specific to your site where people want to take an action rather than just share something or comment on it?
I don't know why we haven't seen it before, why every news site doesn't have an action that's already embedded.
Well, I think there's a reason for that. The rules of journalism, the age-old rules of journalism, you have to be objective, have created this environment that I think is best explained by comparing it to a wildlife documentary, where the crew's there filming a lion attacking a gazelle, and you're like, well, why didn't you intervene and save the gazelle? And it's like, whoa, we can't interfere with nature. Don't interfere with nature. And so news has had that, take a step back approach, but we're passionate to feel that and say that you shouldn't be able to report about the crisis in Syria and not report what you can do about it, the solutions.
So do you think this objective nature of news is going on? I mean, there's been a huge debate in the news sphere, and we've been part of it over the past 5 years or so, where some people have accused news organizations of essentially giving the illusion of objectivity anyway, because everyone's a person, everyone has an opinion, reporters have opinions on what they're